Ages ago, there was peace across the entire globe when the seven virtues, faith, hope, charity, fortitude, justice, temperance, and prudence were entrusted to 8 guardians. Most of the guardians were only able to hone one virtue, but there was one who could increase all 7 virtues at once. The guardian of hope, Mara, was good friends with the guardian of faith, Saria. The two were almost inseparable and often worked together to fight evil around the world. Titus, the guardian of fortitude, and Julius, the guardian of justice, were the opposite, tending to work solo and even butted heads at times over how to go about things. Quintus, the guardian of prudence, was always planning for the future, typically with Cassius, the guardian of temperance, as he never indulged in any alcoholic drink that could distort the mind. It was from Quintus' planning for the future that they had developed the technologies they had. He was constantly motivated by looking around and finding problems that he could fix to make life easier for the people of Earth. The most frustrating part to Quintus was when the people would use his tools as weapons, but Quintus understood they would experience growing pains as any species did. Maximus, the guardian who could hone all of the 7 virtues, typically worked with whichever other guardian happened to need help. He was fond of them all, even when they had disagreements. At times he would even stop in at Quintus to help him plan for the future. There was nowhere on the planet that Maximus couldn't go to protect good and thwart evil. The guardians spread throughout the ancient world, using their virtues to do good. Over time the guardians spread good all across the globe and evil became a rarity to encounter. The guardians began working on fighting just bad in the world and eventually seemed to defeat it too. We've done so much good in the world that all we can do now is sit back, Titus said, relaxing back on a throne-like seat. Not all of us solve our problems with our fists, Titus. Justice is never done, Julius replied, getting a glare from Titus. Relax, relax, that's not what he meant, Maximus said with a calm voice. All I was saying is that we should celebrate that fact, Titus said while he looked at Julius. And all I was saying was that justice is never done. Still, there is injustice threatening to happen that'll have to be punished later. Our tasks are different, Titus, Julius replied. That does give me an idea though, Quintus said. The next logical step to take was to leave Earth and begin using their virtues to do good on other planets, but the plan took decades to put together, to ensure humanity wouldn't crumble with them not being there. Knowing that it was the last time that they were going to see each other, the Guardians threw a tremendous party. Everybody was happy, yet none of them could deny that it was a bittersweet moment. It's going to be strange not having you all around here, Maximus said, causing Titus to look back at him with his eyebrow raised. You're not going to seek out a new world? Titus asked, but Maximus shook his head to the side. I'll admit that I'm also tempted to stay, as I've said before, Julius started saying before Titus cut him off. Justice is never done, we know, but have you ever wondered if there were worlds out there without it? Titus asked. I know I've wondered what worlds may need help building their fortitude. I want to free worlds from potential oppressors. Is just Earth the grand scope for you? Hey, I resent that. I'm staying, Maximus replied with a jovial glare before he chuckled. The Earth may still need help. After the grand celebration for bringing peace to Earth, the Guardians traveled into space to begin seeking out other planets. Saria sought out worlds with little faith in restoring their planet and began helping to restore them, yet couldn't ignore the fact that she missed her friend Mara. Mara had found a world corrupted by gigantic corporations where the public believed there was no hope in ever defeating them to save their planet. It was exactly the world she was looking for. Sophia found a world of a stark contrast between the extremely wealthy and the just as extremely poor. Here, Sophia began to use her virtue to restore charity into the hearts of the wealthy. Thus began her solo journey to save the world she had found. Titus had found a world full of enslaved aliens that were forced to do the bidding of their alien overlords. Titus could not resist the temptation to begin working with the enslaved to gather the strength needed to overthrow their oppressors, exactly like he wished to do. Despite having reservations about the whole thing, Julius discovered a planet of anarchy. At first, he observed it and noted that, even in a chaotic, lawless system, they still had an inherent sense of being wronged, and even more interestingly, knowing they've wronged someone else. Julius found this world enticing and began working with the leaders of the various groups that still formed and governed their groups as well as they could. The fact that these people did have a sense of a law system gave Julius the perfect opening to begin his worldwide transformation. Cassius discovered a world of drunks whose entire world revolved around alcoholic drinks. The people there all had a serious hankering for a drink due to their constant indulgence. Cassius found this world to be exactly what he was looking for. Unfortunately, Cassius knew that was going to be the toughest thing he had ever tried to do, to try to get that entire world to, at the very least, begin moderating how often and how much they drink. Quintus wasn't even sure what sort of planet he would be looking for, though he was quite familiar with what it was like to not prepare for the future through his interactions with his fellow guardians during their time on Earth. With that in mind, Quintus began seeking out planets full of disorganization and found a somewhat advanced planet. Yet just with the briefest of study into their people, Quintus could tell that they should be far more advanced. He had found his world. Maximus sighed, saddened at the loss of his fellow guardians, but he knew that it was important to ensure that Earth didn't crumble into chaos after they left. Fortunately, it didn't, but that meant that Maximus was left with nothing to do but keep watch. He couldn't help but continue to hear Titus' words echo in his head over and over. "You're not going to seek out a new world?" Titus said repeatedly. Maximus grimaced and ignored it, but he couldn't help but wish that he had at least had a spaceship built for himself, just in case. Now, alone, Maximus would have to enlist the help of the humans he was looking after, and they were nowhere near advanced enough to build a sufficient ship. Maximus knew he had missed his chance to take to the stars. Years later, Sophia was making great progress getting the wealthy people of the planet she had found to grow more charitable. While she continued her mission, a star fell from the sky, but rather than burning up in the atmosphere it stopped. Sophia instantly knew that it wasn't a shooting star but a visitor. She cautiously approached the landing site, but as soon as she saw the spaceship she knew it was a friend. A fellow guardian. "It's good to see you, but what are you doing here?" Sophia asked. "After I helped overthrow the oppressors on the planet that I found, I headed out in search of another. But what I sensed instead was so troubling that I felt it necessary to bring the group back together," Titus replied. "What I sensed was evil emerging on Earth once more." "Maximus can stop it. It's what he stayed behind for," Sophia said. "What I fear is that he's been stopped by whatever evil has risen," Titus replied, causing Sophia to look back at him a bit wider-eyed than before. "I think we're needed back on Earth." "Fine, I think my effects will continue to strengthen here even without me being here anyway," Sophia replied, before she activated a beacon and caused her spaceship to descend from orbit. "Let's get the others." Back on Earth, unbeknownst to the other Guardians, over the years that the other Guardians had been gone, Maximus had been corrupted by observing mankind's actions and began absorbing sins. Maximus, with his ability to hone all virtues, was able to shift this into being able to hone the 7 deadly sins instead. The more Maximus delved into the 7 sins, the more powerful he became, and as a result, he knew that he would eventually draw the attention of the 7 Guardians. Saria sat on her throne overlooking a vast city, smiling, as she had restored the people's faith in their ability to save the planet. By restoring their faith in themselves, the populace began making real strides towards healing their planet. As Saria sat there, she sensed good diminishing on Earth and felt an old pang to go home. 2 spaceships began descending from the skies, and Saria just knew that it was her fellow Guardians, prompting her to open communications with them. "I take it you sense the changes on Earth too?" Saria asked. "We need to gather the others too, and it seems like we have less time than I initially thought," Titus replied, while he and Sophia's spacecrafts hovered in the air awaiting Saria to join them. Saria quickly joined the 2 of them, and together they joined their spacecrafts into a larger one, allowing them to visit with one another on the trip to the nearest planet containing a Guardian. The next Guardian to be enlisted was Julius, as they found him on a world governed by fair law. After obtaining Julius and adding his spacecraft to the collective, the Guardians headed for their next kin. Mara was on her planet, happy with her work with the world, when 2 spacecrafts landed on her world. Mara knew they were Guardians and were glad to see them. The 2 crafts opened up and Cassius and Quintus appeared out of them. "Mara, have you sensed Earth?" Quintus asked, causing Mara to shake her head. "Good is diminishing. We're once again needed on Earth." "It appears as though you're not alone in this thought," Mara said, looking beyond the two Guardians into the sky above as one large Guardian spacecraft descended to the ground. I sent Titus to gather the others while Cassius and I got you to gather swifter than one at a time, Quintus said, before Mara activated her spacecraft and joined the collective of crafts. We've all done well on our worlds, but now the Earth requires our return. Maximus must be lost and whatever evil smote him must also be destroyed, Julius said, for justice. To bring good back to Earth, Mara said with a smile. To defeat evil once again, Sophia said, smiling at her old friend Mara. We've got quite the fight ahead of us. Maximus was the most powerful of us. We're going to have to work as a team if we want any hope of defeating whatever took him out. The Guardian's large spacecraft soared through the air, out of the atmosphere of the planet and into the vastness of space. As they headed toward Earth, the Guardians could sense the diminishing good and rise of something evil more and more. The closer they got, the more they began to secretly wonder if they would be enough to defeat the evil they sensed. Even as a team,